So we just released our Gulf Employment Index. 1% growth in jobs in quarter one, despite Ramadan, first Eid, regional conflict that encroached 4 weeks out of so all of March, very end of Feb, and still a 1% growth across the GCC, 0.9 of 1% in the UAE, 0.5% in Saudi Arabia. Rest of the markets either flat or down. So exceptional quarter, all things considered. It's probably very fair to say that that's really propped up by a very strong January and an exceptionally strong February.
I would agree. I would say it's a testament to the resilience of the market, because as we've seen, even international mandates, the majority of hiring processes have still been ongoing despite what's happening. And we've still seen steady job growth in several functions, i.e. HR, sales and marketing.
Yeah.
Who would have known?
Yeah.
Up 9%.
Yeah, crazy.
Which is unbelievable.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you still have growth in steady growth in areas like real estate, governance, risk, and compliance.
Yeah.
So while there has been, of course, a downtick in certain areas, the overall theme is that this place is resilient and companies are doubling down, especially in the private sector. And I think it's very encouraging that despite everything that's happened, despite the Ramadan and Eid holiday, and the fact that we've gone through quite an uncertain period, things still look promising in terms of recruitment.
Agreed. Could it be possible that the UAE and Dubai particularly is the most resilient city in the world? Most resilient place in the world? Only place in the world that came out of COVID much stronger than it went into COVID. We saw that was an area where Dubai, UAE, and the general Gulf were really pushed ahead in terms of economic diversity, in terms of its ability to see beyond the obvious and to overcome that at a rate where it took other countries years to come out of.
I think while this whole situation isn't ideal, that they really do thrive in these tumultuous periods. Because if you were to take the same circumstances and put 99% of other cities or countries in the world in the same conditions, there's no way
Agreed.
There would they would come out as positively and as strong as they've managed to do. And look, it's a testament to their preparation and also just how strong these several industries here in the GCC are.
Yeah.
Because they prove that they're not fragile, that they can withstand a lot of temporary instability.
Yeah.
And I think for a lot of the international talent, I think, of course, it's a situation where some may feel additional hesitancy where they didn't before, but I still think for the majority of the best international talent, this would probably only make this location even more favorable to them, because regardless of where you're at in the world, whether it's COVID or a conflict or some external factor that can happen. I mean, things, whether it's a recession in the economy, things are guaranteed to happen. And at least this particular part of the world has dealt with significant challenge, and they've still managed to come out on top somehow.
Look, the fact that we call it a regional conflict, it's a war.
Yeah.
Like we all refer to it as the regional conflict. Yet it is what it is. It's a war. Other countries would flatline, and we seem to breed a different kind of energy and a different kind of oxygen. I genuinely mean that. Like when we were looking at these numbers and putting these numbers together, I was looking at them with Mena, and we've missed something. We've added something in twice. How can we have more jobs this quarter, even allowing for a good January and February, with March being still below par? And we were 12 or 13% below in March in terms of a month-on-month review, but the data set is quite small, so we don't look at it monthly. It is just, I think it's pretty incredible. I mean, to your point on potentially Candice looking at this as a place that has an improved appeal to it. When you think about how the UAE government have been able to handle this, and the Saudi government as well, to be fair, and all the GCC governments, particularly maybe the UAE government, how they've handled this situation, it's been pretty phenomenal. We are literally looking up in the air at interceptions. And to go in to meet a client to talk about search work that's coming up.
Who would have thought?
Who would have thought? I mean, you talk about 99% of countries or 99% of places. I'd say it's a very small, very, very small group of countries that just wouldn't, as I said, flatline with that kind of external pressure.
It's worth noting too that percentage of job growth would have actually been more significant had it not been for a sharp decline in certain industries.
Yeah.
So energy, for example,
Yeah.
negative 12%, but
Yeah.
that is obviously going to come back in the short to midterm.
Yeah.
Same with banking. One of the reasons we see a decline there is largely due to your core banking sales roles, RM product roles, lending, obviously.
Sure.
There's going to be hesitancy during a time like this.
Yeah.
And then same with investment related roles within banking.
Yeah.
So we're already seeing that that's starting to have an uptick compared to the first weeks of the conflict. And then when it comes to the roles that protect the business, anything relating to audit, governance, risk compliance, anything impacted by the regulatory landscape, these are all ticking up. So again, mining, banking, energy are the main industries where we actually saw a regression, whereas HR, sales and marketing, supply chain, legal, cyber, investments, real estate, manufacturing, public sector, even digital data and AI, all of these industries continued to grow.
100%. If we didn't have what we had in March, we would have, I think we would have seen a 4 or 5% increase. Quarter one is typically a very good quarter. So I think where we see potentially the biggest impact coming is maybe in quarter two. What's the views on April as you sit here a couple of weeks into April now?
I think with some of the industries I mentioned, such as energy, you're going to see an uptick because you understandably had a lot of power plants, all of the sovereign semi-government energy companies had put a lot of projects on hold, understandably, because look, a lot of these desalination plants and energy plants they have are inconveniently located near military assets and bases. But now that we've reached a point where the actual toll hasn't been as significant as maybe they would have initially thought when they were exercising caution, all of these projects are starting to become active again and move forward. So when it comes to Q2, I think you're going to see an uptick with a lot of the industries that were hurting, mining, banking, energy. And you're going to see all of the, I would say the majority of the functions that we've seen a healthy uptick, such as sales, HR, and marketing, continue to grow, because it just shows where companies are placing their bets on, which is their internal capabilities, human development. They understand that in order to have long-term success as an organization, they need to continue investing in these functions. Another thing with regards to Q2 is that the nationalization. So if we're talking both Saudization and Emiratization, I feel like these are where we've seen it's no longer just meeting a quota, but I think companies are really thinking long term and strategically, where they really need to place strong leaders from the local level, not just within your semi-government companies like Mubadala and ADQ, but if they're thinking of the long-term success and continuing the kind of successful growth trajectory that they've had, they need to have more of more of these nationalization hires within C-level and N-1 and N-2 positions within the private sector. So, and we're starting to see that already with a lot of clients in several industries. You see it in real estate companies like Aldar, prioritizing these kinds of hires. So I think we're going to see an uptick. Of course, there's going to be, it's not going to be as drastic as maybe an increase as we typically see from a Q2, because usually what's happening in Q2 is a lot of the momentum that's carried from Q1. So may not look like a regular year, but I think we have to take in consideration everything that's happening, and it's still very healthy signs that the market's responding well.
Yeah. Localization or even locally based hires seem to be a bit more important than they did maybe before the conflict began. So, and I think there's always been a bit of a mix in terms of what's more important, the local experience element to understanding how to work best in a place like Saudi Arabia or UAE or Qatar, versus sometimes the experience that's required that is new to this market. So whether that's artificial intelligence, or it's a new way of building something, or it's a new set of skills that aren't naturally available in this market. But certainly in the last 6 weeks, I've seen that a lot seems to be resting on locally based candidates rather than hiring from the international markets. Although I see both are still at play. I see we've got people coming in from China and from the US still into some of the senior searches that have been placed in the last couple of weeks. So it's still there, maybe to slightly lesser extent.
What's the single indicator you're watching most closely to gauge whether Q2 hiring will pick up?
Lasting ceasefire. I mean, look, because that then tells you where the bottom is, and in terms of how you begin again. We've been working hard to ensure that we as an organization are working within the confines of the regional conflict rather than waiting for that ceasefire to happen. But a permanent ceasefire is the most important thing for us, obviously. And then, because then that's energy, mining and banking flexing straight back up again. Some of the other sectors, slight anomalies, sales and marketing, HR, always a bit of a quarter one, quick out the door. Legal the same. Legal typically get their first 2 quarters of the year, particularly in the private practice side, they get the bulk of their hiring work done in Q1 and 2. And I think we then have a better read on the market. Interestingly, the CEOs and CHROs that I've spoken to in the last 5 or 6 weeks still fully aim to make their hiring plans for the year. So in other words, dip down, yeah, maybe March, 12% drop. Overall, quarter one was still good. But they're saying that they're still going to make their 2026 hiring number as they planned in Q4 last year.
What are your thoughts on how salaries will be impacted?
We have to understand that this does impact any organization's ability to attract talent, and they will become a new reliance on working with well-networked firms to support with the hiring of people. So if you're an organization that are happy with the top 20% or the top 30% of candidates, no problem, work away. But if you want the top 5% or the top 1%, and we are working with clients that take the top 1%, you will need to lean in and ensure that your recruitment partners are really well connected with your organization, because that's where it's at. And full admiration for our ability and how we've gotten through the last 5 or 6 weeks, but there will be a new version of what it's like to attract talent here, and any city or country immediately attracting that very, very top talent. That's changing for a while.
Absolutely. I've had some interesting conversations with people, Trevor.
Yeah.
Being an American, not to put a target on my back, but I think when I do speak to people coming from the UK or other markets, there's you'll find that people will ask you questions that they would not ask their potential employer directly, because there's a certain objectivity that comes with having lived here in the region, coming from a place like I do, knowing that the reality is much different than what's perceived in the news outlets.
Yeah.
And if I'm here and I'm trying to recruit you from another part of the world to support a client, the ability, I think, for us to help bridge the gap between international talent and clients of ours serves an even more important purpose now. Because, to your point, as incredibly as the GCC countries have managed their response to the circumstances, the perception has changed, and that's undeniable. But it's our inherent duty to obviously paint a picture that's accurate for people that are coming abroad, because again, there's a different line of objectivity that comes with speaking to somebody who
100%. Look, I mean, there's one. I think there's always a greater trust to the person that reminds you of yourself than a person that's maybe a step or two away, either culturally or whatever. Just a difference. So you've a better chance of attracting an American to do something than I do as an Irish person. No, I'm only joking. Irish will always win.
Irish too.
But so, I mean, it's just, I think there's that. Also, we have to accept that there are lots of countries and lots of media outlets in those countries that have tried to do a real hatchet job on Dubai, Dubai particularly. And I think that I know I've been asked, what's happening? We hear all of these things are on fire. There's explosions, and we're going, no, I'm looking at that now, and I'm looking at that building right now. And there's no fire, but to be able to get that from someone that's living here, or what's it like in Saudi, or what's happening in Riyadh at the moment, what's happening in Dubai or Abu Dhabi, like we are in and out of those places all the time, despite what's going on, and we understand that better than anyone else. So there's an element of, there's a greater reliance on our networks to ensure that the correct news and the correct messages are brought back to those people that are considering moving here still.
I agree. Absolutely. When you're speaking to CEOs or CHROs as of late, what's the dominant emotion? Is it quiet optimism, patience?
It was so. I think there's 8 stages of grief. So I don't know how many. I don't know what stage we're at now at the moment, but so it was probably on a genuine level. It was probably fear, to frustration, to it's a bit of anger as well in the mix. Probably helped by some really powerful leadership messages from the ruling families here. Walking around Dubai Mall with no security, doing iftar during Ramadan as we're being attacked gives you great comfort that there's a lot of self-belief that we have this covered. And that, so there's that. So I think there's been an awful lot of that genuine emotions happening. I think there's quite optimism. I think we feel the last event like this. Sorry, there's been no event like this in the UAE's history, but the last similar event was COVID. Came out stronger than we went in. I think that's the feeling that's going to happen. They still believe that despite a 4 or 5 week drop in terms of activity, that they're still going to hit their annual revenue targets and their annual headcount growth targets. So
It's incredible.
that's pretty phenomenal.
Yeah.
We're not different in that ourselves. We've hit our Q1 numbers. So despite everything, and it's not just. It's everything in our business that keeps us thinking about things, but I think it's a genuine feeling that we'll get through this and come out stronger. And I think it's incumbent on us as leaders in our own businesses to stay strong for our people. And we've seen that at the highest level of government here. And it's not the time to use this unfortunate situation to make some not so longer term view in terms of some organizations making some cuts and some unsavory decisions unless they're absolutely necessary. They should be refrained from and looked at more of a slightly longer term view, I think, in my opinion.
I agree.
Yeah.
Wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
One thing, I've been here 3.5 years, so you'd have more perspective than I do. But whenever there's any difficult period, it really reveals who a country is at their core and how resilient they are. What's surprised me and not surprised me is the fact that so many expats who call this place their home, like you and me, how much they believe in the ability of this market, this country, the leadership of this country to ultimately come out on top of this.
Yeah.
And I expected that to a degree, but you haven't seen any kind of short-term panic or this mass exodus of the working people in this country, especially when we're talking about people who are expats working in corporate functions that we've placed across hundreds of organizations.
Yeah.
There has been no, of course there have been some departures, but in terms of what you'd expect under the same conditions, it's been very minimal. Yeah. And it shows just at its core how much people believe in the longevity of this place. Yeah. So it's interesting because I wasn't here during COVID, but I can imagine the uncertainty during that time.
Yeah.
And this is a different kind of uncertainty. But
it is, yeah. But it's an uncertainty that's brought upon us by a force majeure type event, right? Same with COVID, but there are also lots of difference. Look, for me, it's about perspective. A British newspaper led with a headline a couple of weeks ago saying that one in 8 UK residents had returned to the UK from Dubai, and Dubai took that headline and said 7 out of 8 UK residents have decided to stay in Dubai, which I thought was very good. A credit to Love in Dubai for that, I think, even though it's interesting. But I agree that the you see when the chips are down, you see what you have from a leadership and from a country point of view, and for the organisation that you work for as well, in terms of how they handle a certain situation.
They've handled it well.
UE government surely have, yeah. Yeah.
Loaded question here. For candidates and companies in the region right now, what's your practical advice?
Practical advice for candidates would be honestly would be quite similar, and this is not self-fulfilling prophecies or anything, but like if you're working with a firm with in terms of seeking that job, you need to make sure that they're a trusted person, a trusted organization, and they're working with the right type of clients. I would say that irrespective of what's happening now, I think now it's even more important as you're looking for what's actually happening on the ground, what's happening, what does life look like, how do you get around, do you get around. Also, as you're looking at organizations in terms of potentially joining an organization, what's your policy around work from office versus work from home? In terms of showing who is putting the human into human capital of recruitment, right? Because I think that is genuinely important, particularly if people are having, as we've seen over the last period of time, you've good days and bad days. We still have a complete choice in terms of work from home or work from office, but from about the end of the first week, we had 80%, 85% of people working from the office.
That's about right, yeah.
So I think that's important, but it's important that candidates that are joining, particularly from other places where work from home policies may be considered a bit more of a standard. Sometimes it's not here. So I think that's important. And likewise, organizations, when they're hiring, it's about understanding. It's about understanding not just has this headcount been approved, has it been reapproved? What you don't want is you don't want candidates, going through a process and then being told that you're not going to go ahead and hire, and then when you are going ahead to make a hire, that you're able to take on the responsibility for relocating that person if that's what you decide to do, and are you willing to, in the event of any level of escalation or return to a conflict, are you in a position to have that person work remotely? Is that an option for you? And you're weighing up all these things as you make big decisions around taking people from another part of the world and bringing them out here. So all just very normal, logical, does this make sense? What's the sensible approach here? What does that look like? And does it still make sense with this kind of new norm that we're working with at the moment?
Yeah. I'd say most of our clients have exhibited a lot of flexibility and an ability to pivot in these conditions that have been a benefit to them and the people that they've been onboarding, because I know we've had several clients of ours allowing people from abroad to start on a remote or hybrid basis.
Yep.
Just accommodating them and extending an arm, reaching halfway across the table, and in return, this has resulted in a lot of successful onboardings and minimizing the amount of people that would have thought, reconsidered or pulled out given what's happening. So I would say companies have made very good judgment in this area, especially when bringing on international talent. So that will pay dividends in the long run because, like you said, you have to be flexible in these kinds of circumstances and consider the conditions and the feelings of those that would become part of your team.
Yep, 100%. Yeah, no, agreed. I think it is right now for me. It's just about being sensible, using a sensible approach, and ensuring that, as we all should, that you're not just taking just the business interest at heart in terms of whatever decisions, whether they're hiring or they're removing headcount. That you're trying to do that with a slightly longer view line than just this person, I don't need him today, but remembering all the things they brought to the table and trying to make the right decisions. I've been asked a couple of times today, is it fair that people are that organizations are removing headcount from their organizations? And my view on that is, well, if the organization absolutely needs to do that because their work or their pipeline of activities reduced down or their revenues dropped, an organization needs to make the best decision for the organization. So it is a very unsavory and unpleasant situation to be in, but it's a factor.
Yeah.
And I know it's very difficult on individuals, but there's got to be the right balance, and it shouldn't be overdone, and it shouldn't be dismissed when the organization has to make that very tough decision.
Yeah. The good thing is we haven't seen a lot of organizations, at least yet, make those kinds of short-term drastic decisions.
Yeah.
It seems, again, going back to what I was saying just about the belief in the longevity of this market, that companies understand that this will pass eventually.
Yeah.
And your best human capital is not something that you can easily replace either.
Yeah, no, for sure. Look, I agree. I think I think there's a fragment of the market that are probably looking at it at the moment, and I just think that sometimes we're kind of blessed with the type of clients that we work with, that they've always been more medium to long term kind of visionary type organizations, rather than maybe some organizations that are very short term, very much more day to day or week to week view of the market, which is where I think that and I agree it's only a smaller percentage of organizations, but it's certainly affecting that part of the market more than the majority of the market.
Definitely. Going back to what we were talking about, Q2, what do you see as some of the key differences, say, between UAE and, say, the Saudi Arabian market, where they've obviously been less impacted than the UAE, but impacted nonetheless.
Yeah.
But even though their growth was slightly less than the growth we saw here in the UAE, again, a lot of that was due to energy, but we still saw steady growth in a lot of other areas in KSA. So
yeah, agreed. I mean, look, I think Saudi's a monster. It's a monster market. industrially, energy-wise, mining-wise, non-oil-wise, technology-wise. It is just it's a real big machine. I know we know this, but sometimes it's easy to forget if you added all the other countries up, you still don't get to the population of Saudi Arabia in the GCC, right? So, so Saudi have probably had a greater impact in their recalibration and review of what Vision 2030 looks like, and a focus on time-based projects like Expo and like World Cup, etc. Those actual changes in their Vision 2030 has had a much greater impact on their flow of work and flow of jobs than the war has. Whereas the war has had a greater impact in March in the UAE. So you got to kind of measure those up a little bit, right? So I mean, I could see Saudi having a good year. As you said, if the only thing that improved were mining and energy in Saudi, they'd be tracking low single digits, 3-4% quarter on quarter growth. So I think that's, so it's really, I would say, no immediate resolution to the conflict. Saudi's number could increase. No immediate resolution to the conflict. We'll see a dip in quarter two in terms of jobs. And that could be 1 or 2% up, and as much as 3 or 4, 5 or 6% down in the UAE. And as a permanent ceasefire resolution, I think I'd say we could see an immediate spike up in the UAE market more than the Saudi market, because it's the war impact that's impacting us here in the UAE, and less so in Saudi. Saudi will come it's like a big juggernaut coming, and so the movement is just a little bit slower, but the pace is high. Whereas we are more nimble, more dynamic, and we'll be quicker to flex back up again, the UAE.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Inshallah, that will be the outcome, right?
Inshallah, that'll be the outcome. There's just an element of, there's sometimes that, that you think you hear something, and then you ask the person alongside, did you hear that? And they go, no. And I went, okay. That maybe there's nothing, right? So, but I come from a country where we say, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, right? And I genuinely think that this will make us stronger.
I think it already has.
Yeah, maybe individually, and it's made us individually, and certainly, as a cluster and organizations and as a wider community. I think there's an element. You and I spoke about this earlier. We're talking about, the need to buy locally. Why are organizations working with recruitment firms in London?
It's a good question.
Why? I mean, why? Why anyway? The depth of skills and knowledge and experience here, not just in Cooper Fitch, but even in other recruitment firms, they're good outside of Cooper Fitch. So, and I think we need to, that community, that looking out for your neighbour should exist in terms of what you're buying. So just buy local policy, I think, is very important for us, and should be not just encouraged. I think it should be prohibited to be working with not just recruitment firms, legal firms, HR consulting firms. Where we buy our products from, we should be looking to source locally in every occasion, and a tariff should be put on anything that comes in. to ensure that, that whether it's a product or a service, that we're protecting the jobs that are here. I think there's a real win in that for us. And I think the community here has gotten stronger, and we've made ourselves more self-reliant. And I think organizations really honestly should be why are we buying a service outside of the UAE when there's so many capable providers in the UAE?
You don't think it'll trend in that direction? I think it will.
I think in time it could. I think it should be immediate. I think organizations should reflect on what they're doing, and they should look at supporting the infrastructure that allows for talent providers or providers of any kind to get to the bar in which they think they deserve, the quality they deserve. And I think it's incumbent on organizations to ensure, and the provider to ensure that quality level is not just met but exceeded. But I think, having been out here for a decade and a half nearly now, that the talent that's here, my ability to hire great talent, great guys from America, great guys from Europe, great guys from Asia, from the region, from India, from Pakistan, we can hire that great talent here in terms of Cooper Fitch and get the people working together, understanding the market, getting really good guidance on how to attract, how to develop EVP, how to go to market, how to develop a search strategy, create best-in-class products. It's here, and it's not just in Cooper Fitch. The Shrek firms are here. A lot of international firms are brilliant here as well. And I think it's just incumbent on organizations that in all cases that they use firms that are based here.
I agree. I do think things will shift in that direction.
Yeah.
And I think you're already starting to see that kind of mindset, not just in focusing on the regional relationships as it relates to your talent partners or financial institutions, but also to serve, to localize a lot of the needs. So manufacturing here in the UAE, across the Gulf, there's going to be more of a priority of being self-sustainable in a lot more ways. So I do think, to your point, that is going to be the direction in which things move, because it's going to be a benefit to the community that's here. And this is a shared pain that we've all gone through.
100%.
And that's not to, I also want to say that pain is relative, because in reality, you and I and everyone we know has been perfectly safe and fine. It's been more of a mental battle, really.
It's a mental exhaustion.
Right. But in terms of our physical safety, I mean, compared to people in more dire parts of the world, it's a very different reality. We're very fortunate. So, just going back to what I was saying, it's that shared pain, that relatability that I think makes this community stronger. And I think that's another reason we'll see more of a prioritization of local partners.
100%. Like we talk about food security, and it's very important. It's high on the agenda in all the GCC countries. So very important. But, talent security, or consulting security in terms of ensuring that there's services as well as the products here. For me, that's super important. I say tariff anyone that's not here. We're protected. We've got offices in Saudi and the UAE. There are two core markets. But honestly, if you take that to its fullest extent, and we're not in Qatar, we do some really important work in Qatar. And if they want to put a tariff on our services, I mean, I'd accept that. But I just think it's real important. I agree with what you're saying. Manufacturing, supply chain. Even in March, we saw marginal gains in terms of the number of jobs coming through in those sectors. So I think it makes sense to ensure that we have what we need when we need it at all times in the region.
I agree. Absolutely.
I mean, what's been amazing during this conflict has been the way the UE government have really come out and showed really strong leadership. We saw them walking around Dubai Mall for iftar a number of days after the conflict had begun. We saw smoke in the air, interceptions of missiles, and when you see your leadership walking around, not in a very blasé way, but in a way that says we can continue to live our normal lives because we've got that covered. I think it gives supreme confidence that we have this covered and that we can do exactly what they've asked us to do, which is to continue to work, continue to live as normally as possible.
Absolutely.